My name is Aaron Cuny, and I am co-founder and head of school at Ingenuity Prep. About 2.5 years ago, I sat down with a colleague at the time and asked him to co-found the school with me. And so we are now 2.5 years into the experience of launching Ingenuity Prep, and I'm now serving as head of school. So one of our core values is ambitious aims, and that's reflected in the mission of the school and in the vision that we have. Our mission is to prepare students to succeed in college and beyond as impactful civic leaders. And we take that seriously and aspire to do that for all of our students, not just particular sections of students, not just those students who are coming to us achieving at high levels. And in that work of preparing our students to succeed in college and beyond as impactful civic leaders, we want to be one of the best at what we do in the country. And so we have really ambitious aims for what we want to do in serving our kids and families right now, but also in growing as an organization. We think that there's no reason we can't aspire to the same level of organizational excellence as the best for-profit or non-for-profit organizations out there. Having just opened up in August, we are just now getting some of our first interim assessment data back. And our aspirations are to ensure that all of our students are prepared to be successful. And so you'll see schools that feel really good about having 40 or 50 or 60% of their kids achieving proficiency, grade level proficiency. And we've had a great opportunity to start from scratch here as a new school and to build relationships with our students and our families from the beginning. And if we, at the end of this year, only have 40, 50, 60% of our kids proficient, then I think we as adults at the school haven't done something right. And so our aspirations this year are to see at least 90% of our students achieving at grade level as they head on to the next school year. And so if that's not something we accomplish, it's a function of not the kids, but the work that we've done as adults, and it'll be something that we'll sit down and reflect on and figure out how we can adjust the mistakes that we made this year and aspire to those same high benchmarks as we head into next year. I believe that there is a wide range of factors that impact a child's development and a child's achievement. Family factors ranging from family to the community to what goes on in the school. And with that said, we take full responsibility here at school for everything that's within our power. And I believe, and my experience has played out, that when the adults within the school get things right, then students can achieve at high levels. And so even students who are coming from more challenging contexts can achieve at high levels when the school gets it right. We have a core value of ambitious aims, and that's reflected in the academic expectations that we have. We actually like to talk about the achievement expectations we have, because we have expectations in the traditional core academic areas, but we also have achievement expectations for our students as it relates to their social emotional growth. And so we have assessment data that we're tracking for student social emotional growth and have ambitious aims for the development of our students in those areas, just as we do in literacy and math. Ultimately, our goals are backwards mapped from a vision of having our students become successful, impactful civic leaders. And so the rigor that we know students need to be able to tackle in all of those areas, whether it's a social emotional competency or a traditional core content area. Our work is aspiring to make sure students are prepared to tackle really high levels of rigor in all of those areas. I'm very fond of the saying that smart is something you get, not something you are. And so that's how we approach our work with kids. We constantly reinforce students not for being smart, but for working hard. And it's a part of something we try to make a really extensive part of the culture and the way we talk to kids, the way we engage with families. And I have seen time and time again in my own experience as a teacher, students who have started struggling, but through a lot of hard work and through the right adult supports, are able to succeed. And so I think it just, there's lots of great examples out there of students who achieve at high levels, who have done so through lots of hard work and through the right surrounding support. We have a model where we are tracking a lot of data across traditional core content areas and broader leadership competencies. And if we're not organized around the way that we're tracking that progress, the way that we're assessing students, both at high levels and assessing them in very nuanced ways on an ongoing basis, we call it formative data. If we're not organized around that high-level data and that formative data, then students' needs slip through the cracks. So if my kindergarten literacy teacher doesn't know what letter sounds a particular student needs work on, then it's likely that student is not going to have instruction that's targeted at his or her personal needs. So we have been developing systems that allow us to capture data around what students' needs are and what their developmental next steps are, to organize ourselves around when we're analyzing that data, and to make sure that that information on an ongoing basis is informing the teaching that happens in the classrooms. We have a model where we have lots of small group instruction, and if we were teaching all of those small groups the same thing, then we would be failing our kids. And so we really leverage the data that we have to make sure that small group A is getting their personal needs met, and small group B, which may have some different needs, is getting their personal needs met. But the way that we organize ourselves around assessments and data and quality assessments, that is really critical to fulfilling our commitment to our parents to personalize instruction for kids. So we're a school that has very high behavioral expectations for students. I believe that students perform best when they can predict with consistency the way things are going to happen. We all perform well when we have routines and we know what's coming. And so we as a school try to establish order and systems and routines that students can count on. And we provide reinforcement to students in positive ways when they meet our expectations. And we aspire to be consistent in providing redirection to students when they don't meet our expectations. There is a great challenge in getting a number of adults across the building to all be consistent in the same way in following up with students when they're not meeting expectations. But that's a big organizational commitment of ours, and in fact something that I can give one concrete example. We have a group of kindergarten teachers who spent some of their team meeting time a few weeks back watching video of how various members on the team responded to certain student misbehaviors. And the team spent time really norming themselves around what misbehaviors got what consequences and what redirection. And so I think there's a challenge in being consistent and upholding really high expectations across all adults. But it's something that we invest time and conversation in doing really well. We spent a lot of time as a school when we first launched thinking about the rules and expectations that we would have for students, and then the plan that we would put in place to ensure that students were successful with those rules. I spent time meeting with our master teachers, and we thought through the implications of various types of discipline plans, various approaches to enforcing discipline, and so a lot of thought involving the teachers was put into developing our expectations and our plan for following through in reinforcing those expectations. Generally, philosophically, we want students to be in the classroom as much as possible, but we do have a pretty high bar for the behavior that keeps you in the classroom. And so if students are meeting our expectations, they're able to stay in the classroom. And if students aren't meeting expectations, they're given chances to show that they can stay in that classroom before they're removed. So we have a ladder of consequences that gradually increases in severity as students continue to show misbehavior. So a student who has a minor misbehavior initially might simply get a redirection from a teacher. If that student continues to struggle, they would have what we call a sit and watch in the classroom, where the student sits in a chair, watches his or her peers for a couple minutes, and then has a chance to come back and try it again. If a student were to continue to struggle, then they would have a short timeout, which is sometimes in the classroom and sometimes out of the classroom. When students come out of the classroom with us, we simultaneously try to take the approach of making it feel like a consequence that they don't enjoy. We want them to want to be in the classroom where the learning is happening. But we also recognize that part of our role as educators is to provide the therapeutic support that our students need to address the root of the behavior. And so when students are coming out of the classroom, for us, it is, yes, sometimes a negative consequence, but also we aim to make it a therapeutic experience. So all in all, our goal is to keep kids in the classroom, but we have a very high bar for the level of behavior that earns you the right and privilege to stay in the classroom. You'll see some schools where good behavior is rewarded with tangible things, and we have taken an approach at Ingenuity Prep of rather than rewarding students with tangible things when they're doing well, we like to provide recognition and reward them with experiences. And so students may be recognized simply with a shout out from a teacher. A student who may have struggled to follow directions in a lesson may get a public shout out from a teacher in front of his or her peers. They may get recognized in communication with a family member. And we also like to reward students with experiences. And so one core part of that in our program is something we call choice time. And so at the end of every child's experience in a classroom, in our kindergarten model, that's at the end of their time in the classroom in the morning, and then the end of their experience in the classroom, the second classroom they go to in the afternoon. Students have choice time, and those who have earned the opportunity to go to choice time with good behavior essentially are able to choose from among a number of free play and productive centers. And so it's a time where there's a lot more opportunity for students to engage in fun things that they might not normally do during the rest of the day, and something that students are invested in earning. Students who don't earn choice time sit with a teacher and do some reflecting on why that was the case. But for us, choice time is a really key part of rewarding the students who have behaved in the right way over the course of morning or an afternoon or an entire day. As the head of school, I see the professional growth of my teachers and not just my teachers, but all of my staff as one of my key responsibilities. We know that we are going to be most likely to be an exemplary organization if we're attracting great people on the front end and retaining them, but we also have to grow them during that time. And so it is definitely, the responsibility falls on me to make sure that that is happening. I try to observe all of our teachers at least once a week and to get them feedback on a regular basis. I meet in one-on-one check-ins with our teachers and our other staff members and try to plan out both professional development, structured professional development, guided planning time, and independent planning time in a way that meets teachers' needs. We also try to capitalize on providing great professional development support from external sources. And so we've partnered, for example, with a professor out of Georgia State University who, in my opinion, knows more about how elementary kids think about math instruction than anyone I've ever met. Right now, she's working with some of the highest performing charter schools in the country. And so we are bringing her in on a regular basis to support our kindergarten master math teacher in building her content knowledge. This math consultant knows way more about math than I do. We have a literacy consultant who works with the STEP program out of the University of Chicago who knows way more about literacy than I do. And so we've invested a fair amount of money in bringing her in to support the development of our literacy teachers' content knowledge. And so I've tried to be really thoughtful about recognizing where I can add value as an instructional leader, but also going out and finding some of the best other instructional support in the country and bringing those folks in to support the content knowledge development in particular of our teachers. I think the number one thing that I can do as a school leader to drive the success of our organization is to attract and select great staff, both instructionally, operationally, and on our student support team. And so I take that work very seriously and invest a lot of my time personally in making sure that we're bringing the right folks on board. We invest in marketing ourselves as an organization and building a big pool of candidates. We're going to come out with better teachers if we're selecting from a pool of 100 than we are if we're selecting from a pool of 10. So part of the work is making sure that that big pool of candidates is there. And then the next step is really making sure that there's a rigorous selection process. And I'm also very directly involved in that selection process. It across a range of positions involves a number of stages. And so typically there's a wide funnel in the beginning, several online applications, phone interviews, reference checks, and eventually for us, we bring folks in for a finalist selection event that brings in a number of candidates together for activities that involve individual, in-the-moment tasks that folks have to do, but also collaborative activities. We're looking for people who are really smart, but that's really smart analytically, socially, and culturally. So there's a lot of components of how we think about intelligence when we select for candidates beyond just the traditional definition of smarts. And so we're looking for folks who are smart in all of those ways. We look for candidates who have a real commitment to our mission and who believe deeply that all of our kids can be successful. And we look for folks who have a really strong achievement orientation, people who are obsessed with outcomes and obsessed with continuous improvement, and who wouldn't be satisfied if 90% of our kids were on track to go to college, who would continue to drive to make sure that all of our kids are on track to be successful. So we cast a wide net. We have a really rigorous selection process that's designed to find people who meet some of those criteria that I just shared. That's how we've ended up with great folks here with us for year one, and we will continue to engage in that way as we look to hire really great candidates for year two. I think that strong evaluation and teacher support go hand in hand. And all of that has to be based in a really clear vision of what's expected of teachers. And so we have built out a teaching framework that is really comprehensive and really nuanced, and unpacks really specific instructional moves and other expectations that we want to see from our teachers, but have tried to prioritize those expectations in a way that is not overwhelming. So you'll find in a lot of teaching frameworks, there is so much that's being asked of teachers at once that it's hard to focus and it becomes overwhelming. And so we've tried to build out a really comprehensive framework that has a lot of nuance to it, but be really thoughtful about, at given points in time, what we're asking teachers to focus on. And so we actually are just now going through our very first evaluation cycle, and teachers are just beginning to engage in some self-reflection around the framework. But as we are only a few months into the school year, teachers are being evaluated on about a third of that framework. And as we grow as an organization and have more time to feel like we've really nailed those first priorities, we will layer on additional expectations of our teachers. I'll share that unlike a lot of organizations that approach teacher evaluation in a way that designates certain periods of time when teachers are accountable. So in many places, teachers may have 3 to 5 formal evaluations over the course of a year or a given cycle. I believe that teachers should be accountable anytime they're in front of kids or anytime they're engaging with the parents. And so we've tried to set up a philosophy around evaluation that essentially provides for accountability at any point, not just at particular designated formal evaluation periods. Our approach to parent engagement essentially takes on 3 strategies. We first believe that we have to build relationships with our families in order to build trust. We are a new school in a community that we are new to, and we don't expect families to automatically have trust in us. We think that that's something that we have to earn, and we know that trust is best earned once a relationship is established in the way that any relationship builds trust. And so our first priority as we think about engagement with parents is to really build that trust and build relationships. When we first started as an organization and first started to enroll parents, we had parent meetings where we spent our time getting to know our families' stories, their histories, getting to know their hopes and dreams for their kids. And we saw that as our obligation to begin to build those relationships and build trust. The second strategy in our parent engagement approach is to provide our parents the opportunity to have a voice in the school. And so I, as the head of school, have office hours that parents can sign up for and come in and share feedback with me at any points. And they do. I get feedback from parents around our uniform policy, around our breakfast policy. If parents feel particularly strongly about an issue, they know, I hope that they know, that there are opportunities for them to come and provide that feedback to me. We really want to make sure that there are structures that are put in place for their voice to be heard. We also, just a couple weeks ago, held our very first parent empowerment meeting, and we had parents come in and really be the drivers in telling us what they wanted to prioritize as a group. So they nominated topics that they thought should be the focus of the parent empowerment time over the course of the rest of the year. And then we gave parents the opportunity to vote, and we walked away from the meeting with a list of topics and events and activities that they wanted to prioritize their time on. And so that, again, is an example of us really trying to cultivate the voice of our parents. And then lastly, we want to be able to engage with parents around the academic and social emotional development of their kids. So tonight, actually, we have our second parent data conferences where we will bring our parents in, we'll give them feedback around how their child is doing in a range of academic and non-academic areas. And then we'll sit down and share some strategies that parents can use at home and outside of school to support their kids. But those conversations where we're asking things of parents and asking them to provide certain supports at home and even challenging and pushing parents, we think that we can't do that if we haven't first built those relationships and laid a foundation of trust, and also ensure that parents feel like they have a voice. And so that last piece is really comes later if we've done those first two pieces well. And so all three of those are things that we are going to continue moving forward. We're not now moving on to parent engagement around academics and leaving the relationship building behind. They're things that we need to continue to do on a regular basis as we go forward and onboard new parents, and then also do right by the parents who we have already. Fortunately, we at this point have a very small school, and I am constantly out and about in classrooms and in the hallways. And I would venture to say that most parents probably see me at least once every day. And I have really sought to build relationships in a way that has parents feeling comfortable stopping me at any point when they see me and letting me know what's on their mind. There are also formal opportunities for parents to connect with me. We have head of school office hours that parents can sign up for on a weekly basis. And then there are also times when there are urgent matters that need to be discussed outside of the context of those formal opportunities. And so and I find myself meeting with parents on a semi-regular basis during the course of the week, whether that's before school or after school. So there's a range of kind of formal and informal opportunities to connect with me. I really see my job both as serving our kids really well, but connecting with parents and making sure that they feel like their needs are being met. We are a school that aspires to grow through high school, and I hope that the relationships that we're forming with both kids and parents this year are relationships that we will sustain for many years. And as with any good relationship, it takes tending to, and it takes face time. And so I want to, going forward, even as we grow, make sure that there are opportunities there for parents to connect with me and get that FaceTime so that we can continue to cultivate our relationship and so that they feel good about having their kid at Ingenuity Prep.